In today's jaw-dropping episode, we are diving into a historical twist so bizarre, it feels like fiction.
Hitler realized that he had a real asset there, somebody who understood modern communication, who understood modern media.
Hitler introduced television. It was that absurd. Imagine the very device you might be watching us on now, initially launched by one of history's most notorious figures, Adolf Hitler. Yes, you heard that right. The Führer himself saw the potential of television not just for entertainment, but as a powerful tool for propaganda.
So he gave him quite a lot of power in organizing the party propaganda machines,
aiming to control the masses like never before. Stay tuned as we unravel this astonishing story, revealing how television's early days were manipulated by dark ambitions, and how it evolved into the global phenomenon it is today. You won't believe the details we've uncovered. The 1930s were a dazzling decade of technological innovation, where the world witnessed an unprecedented race among nations to push the boundaries of what was possible. At the forefront of this race was Germany, a nation that had embraced technology as a means to rebuild and project its power on the global stage. In the realm of transportation, Germany was making strides with the Zeppelin airships. These colossal floating giants were not just a symbol of German engineering prowess, but also a statement of ambition. They traversed the Atlantic, connecting people and cultures and showcasing the potential of air travel. Meanwhile, the rest of the world was not far behind. The United States, with its spirit of ingenuity, was revolutionizing personal transport with the mass production of automobiles. The Ford Model T had already set the stage in the previous decade, and now cars were becoming more affordable and sophisticated, changing the landscape of American society. In communications, Germany was again at the helm with their development of the Volksempfänger radio. This device was more than just a means of entertainment. It was a tool for propaganda, designed to reach every German household and align them with the government's message. In contrast, the United States was experiencing a golden age of radio, with shows that captivated the imagination and brought families together around the hearth of storytelling and news. The field of medicine also saw remarkable advancements. Germany's pharmaceutical research led to the discovery of new drugs and treatments, while globally, the discovery of penicillin in 1928 by Alexander Fleming was about to revolutionize healthcare and save countless lives in the coming decades. Cross over into the sphere of energy, and Germany was experimenting with new forms of power generation. The construction of the Dnieper hydroelectric station in the Soviet Union, however, was a testament to the colossal efforts being made to harness nature's power for the benefit of society. The 1930s were also a time when the seeds of computer technology were being sown. Germany's Konrad Zuse was laying the groundwork for the world's first programmable computer, which would later play a crucial role in various fields, from science to warfare. An announcement, however, was about to rock the whole world of technology. The British made a groundbreaking announcement in 1934 that promised to introduce television to a global audience. And this was not just any television, but a high-definition system that boasted over 240 lines of resolution, a marvel for its time. The British had actually been experimenting with television broadcasts since the late 1920s, but it was the development of the Emitron camera by EMI in 1934 that truly set the stage for a worldwide television service. The Emitron, a workable electronic television camera, was a game-changer. It allowed for clearer and more reliable broadcasts, and the British were eager to share this technology with the world. The Television Advisory Committee, under Lord Selsdon, took evidence on the various high-definition television systems and recommended the development of both the Baird 240-line mechanical system and the Marconi EMI 405-line electronic system as alternatives for the proposed New London television station. The excitement was palpable. Imagine the sheer wonder of people across the globe as they envisioned watching live broadcasts from countries oceans away, right in their living rooms. Across the channel, however, the reaction was markedly different. Adolf Hitler, the Chancellor of Germany, was less than enthused about the British leap in television technology. His regime's approach to media and technology would offer insight into the country's reaction to this British triumph. The Nazis were keenly aware of the power of propaganda and the role media played in controlling the narrative. Television, with its ability to reach into the homes of the masses, was a double-edged sword for Hitler. On one hand, it could be a potent tool for disseminating Nazi ideology. On the other, it could also expose the German public to foreign influences that the regime sought to control. Hitler's Germany was already on a path of rapid rearmament and remilitarization, with the Führer's focus firmly on expanding German territory and power. However, the British advancement in television was another arena where the Nazis had to catch up and assert their dominance. This was where Manfred von Ardenne came in. He was a man whose contributions to television technology in the 1930s were nothing short of revolutionary. This brilliant German inventor and physicist, who held around 600 patents, made a groundbreaking leap in the evolution of television during the Berlin radio show in August 1931. Imagine the excitement as he gave the world's first public demonstration of a television system using a cathode ray tube, or CRT, for both transmission and reception. Ardenne's ingenuity lay in his use of the CRT not just for display, but also as a flying spot scanner to scan slides and film. This was a novel approach, as he never developed a camera tube, which was the common route taken by others in the field. His method allowed for the electronic transmission of images, which was a significant step forward from the mechanical systems that were prevalent at the time. The flying spot cathode ray tube, showcased by Ardenne, was a precursor to the fully electronic television systems that would come to dominate the world. It was a pivotal moment that set the stage for the rapid development of electronic television in Germany. Rewind a year back to 1935, and Adolf Hitler was issuing a directive to accelerate Germany's efforts in developing television technology, recognizing its potential as a powerful tool for propaganda and mass communication. This directive would set in motion a series of events that would lead to the establishment of the world's first regularly broadcasting television station, named after Paul Nipkow, a German inventor who pioneered the concept of mechanical television. Paul Nipkow, born in 1860, had invented the Nipkow disc, a spinning disc with a spiral pattern of holes that could be used to scan and transmit images. Although his invention laid the foundation for mechanical television systems, it was not until the 1920s that the technology began to advance significantly. With Hitler's directive, Germany aimed to harness the power of television to glorify the Nazi regime and spread its ideology to the masses. The first German television station, named Fernsehsender Paul Nipkow, began regular broadcasting on March 22, 1935 in Berlin. The station was operated by the Reichspost, the German postal service, which had been tasked with developing television technology under the Nazi regime. The choice to name the station after Paul Nipkow was a strategic move, as it celebrated a German inventor and emphasized the country's technological prowess. The Paul Nipkow television station initially broadcast 3 times a week, with each transmission lasting around 90 minutes. The broadcasts were primarily aimed at a select group of viewers, mostly high-ranking Nazi officials and members of the elite who had access to the expensive television receivers. These early broadcasts consisted of a mix of live performances, films, and of course, political propaganda. As the technology improved and the number of television receivers increased, the Nazi regime began to recognize the immense potential of television as a tool for mass manipulation and indoctrination. The programming on the Paul Nipkow station increasingly focused on glorifying Hitler and the National Socialist ideology. Live broadcasts of Nazi rallies, speeches by Hitler and other high-ranking officials, and carefully curated news segments became a regular feature on the station. One of the most significant events in the history of German television under the Nazi regime was the live broadcast of the 1936 Berlin Olympics. The Paul Nipkow station set up multiple cameras around the Olympic Stadium, providing viewers with a unique perspective of the games. This broadcast showcased Germany's technological capabilities to the world and served as a powerful propaganda tool, presenting the Nazi regime as a modern, efficient, and powerful force. As the 1930s progressed, the Nazi regime continued to invest in television technology and expand its broadcasting capabilities. By 1939, the Paul Nipkow station was broadcasting on a daily basis, with a mix of entertainment, news, and propaganda content. The station's programming became increasingly politicized, with shows designed to promote Nazi values, glorify German culture, and demonize the regime's enemies. One of the primary factors limiting the appeal of early televisions was their exorbitant cost. In the 1930s, the price of a television set was equivalent to the annual salary of an average worker, making it a luxury few could afford. This economic barrier was particularly pronounced in Germany, where the regime's focus on rearmament and military expenditure meant that consumer goods like televisions were not a priority. The high cost of television sets was a result of the complex and expensive manufacturing process, which required a significant amount of manual labor and materials that were scarce due to the regime's other priorities. Moreover, the picture quality of early televisions left much to be desired. The technology of the time could only produce grainy and flickering images that were hard to watch for extended periods. The resolution of early television screens was low, with a limited number of lines making up the image, resulting in a lack of detail and clarity. This poor picture quality was exacerbated by the limited broadcasting content available, which failed to captivate the audience's interest. The outbreak of World War II had a significant impact on Adolf Hitler's plans for television in Germany. Prior to the war, the Nazi regime had recognized the potential of television as a powerful tool for propaganda and mass communication. Hitler himself had expressed enthusiasm for the medium, seeing it as a way to directly reach the German people and shape public opinion in favor of the Nazi ideology. However, the onset of the war in 1939 led to a dramatic shift in priorities, forcing the Nazi leadership to redirect resources and attention away from television development and towards the war effort. In the years leading up to World War II, Germany had made notable progress in television technology. The Reich Broadcasting Corporation, under the control of the Nazi Ministry of Propaganda, had been experimenting with television broadcasts since the mid-1930s. Regular programming, albeit limited, had begun in 1935, and by 1936, Germany had showcased its television capabilities during the Berlin Olympics. The Nazi regime had grand plans for expanding television coverage and making it a central part of German households. They envisioned the future where televisions would be as common as radios, allowing the government to disseminate its messages and propaganda directly into people's homes. However, the outbreak of the war in September 1939 brought these plans to an abrupt halt. As Germany mobilized for war, resources that had been allocated to television development were quickly diverted to support the military effort. The production of television sets, which had been gradually increasing, was drastically reduced as factories were repurposed to manufacture military equipment and supplies. The Nazi government prioritized the production of weapons, ammunition, and other essential war materials over the development and distribution of television technology. Moreover, the wartime demands on the German economy and workforce made it difficult to sustain the ongoing research and development of television. Many of the engineers and technicians who had been working on television projects were reassigned to military-related tasks, such as radar development and communications systems. The expertise and knowledge that had been accumulated in the field of television were now being applied to the war effort, leaving little room for further advancements in the medium. The shift in priorities also affected the content and programming of the limited television broadcasts that continued during the early years of the war. The Nazi Ministry of Propaganda recognized the importance of maintaining control over the information disseminated to the public. As a result, television programming became increasingly focused on war-related news, propaganda, and entertainment, designed to boost morale and support for the war effort. Live broadcasts of speeches by Hitler and other Nazi leaders, as well as coverage of military parades and victories, became the primary content of the wartime television broadcasts. However, as the war progressed and Germany faced increasing challenges on multiple fronts, even these limited television broadcasts became less frequent and eventually ceased altogether. The resources and personnel required to maintain the television infrastructure were further diverted to the war effort, and the bombing campaigns by Allied forces damaged or destroyed many of the television facilities and transmission towers. By the later stages of the war, television had effectively become a forgotten medium in Germany, overshadowed by the urgent demands of the conflict. The aftermath of World War II was a period of reconstruction and innovation for Germany, and the development of television and TV broadcasting was no exception. The war had left the country's infrastructure in ruins, and the television industry, which was still in its infancy, had been largely disrupted. However, the following years would see a remarkable transformation, as Germany not only rebuilt its television capabilities, but also laid the groundwork for what would become a robust broadcasting system. As said earlier, television in Germany before the war was limited and largely experimental. The first regular electronic television service began in Berlin in 1935, but it was not widely accessible to the public. During the war, television took a backseat to radio, which became the primary medium for news and propaganda. The production of television sets was halted, and it wasn't until after the war that television would begin to re-emerge as a potential mass medium. In the immediate post-war years, Germany faced significant challenges in re-establishing television broadcasting. The country was divided into occupation zones, each controlled by different Allied powers, which influenced the development of media systems. In the West, the United States, the United Kingdom, and France had a significant impact on the structure of the broadcasting system, while the Soviet Union exerted its influence in the East. The Western Allies were particularly concerned with preventing the future misuse of broadcasting for government propaganda. This led to the establishment of the Arbeitsgemeinschaft der öffentlich-rechtlichen Rundfunkanstalten Deutschlands, or ARD, a cooperative association of public broadcasters in Germany. The ARD was designed to ensure a decentralized structure, with regional networks placed under the control of the West German Länder governments. The occupying forces left a lasting imprint on the broadcasting practices in their respective zones. For instance, the Nordwestdeutscher Rundfunk, or NWDR in the British zone, adopted practices similar to those of the BBC. In the American zone, stations like Bayerischer Rundfunk, or BR, and Hessischer Rundfunk, or HR, were influenced by American broadcasting styles, thanks to the presence of the Armed Forces Network. Südwestfunk, or Stabio Blaf, in the French zone, incorporated more French broadcasting practices. The 1950s saw significant technological advancements in television broadcasting. The introduction of higher resolution imaging and the development of color television were notable milestones. Germany was at the forefront of these developments, experimenting with color television as early as 1942, which would later contribute to the PAL-SECAM system. As technology improved, so did the reach of television. The number of television sets in German households began to increase, and by the mid-1950s, television was becoming a staple in homes across the country. This expansion was accompanied by a growth in programming, with more diverse and regular broadcasts becoming available to viewers. The division of Germany into East and West also led to the development of two distinct broadcasting systems. In the East, the Soviet Union established the Deutscher Fernsehfunk, or DFF, which served as the state television broadcaster. The DFF was used as a tool for Soviet propaganda and was subject to strict government control. In contrast, the West German broadcasting system was characterized by its federal structure and a greater degree of independence from government influence. The ARD, along with the later addition of the Zweites Deutsches Fernsehen, or ZDF, provided a variety of programming that reflected the diverse interests and regions of West Germany. Television quickly became a cultural force in post-war Germany. It played a crucial role in shaping public opinion and became a platform for discussing national issues. Television also became a means of entertainment, bringing music, drama, and comedy into German living rooms. The medium fostered a sense of shared experience among viewers, contributing to the cultural integration of the country. Hitler's romance with television might have been dead for decades, but the negative impacts are still being felt today. One of the most significant long-term impacts of Hitler's early television efforts was the stagnation of technological innovation in the field. Like we mentioned, the Nazi regime's focus was on using television as a propaganda tool, rather than pushing the boundaries of the technology itself. This emphasis on content over innovation meant that significant resources were directed towards producing propaganda broadcasts, rather than investing in technological advancements. As a result, the period saw a slowdown in the technological evolution of television, delaying advancements that could have accelerated the medium's development globally. This delay had a ripple effect, slowing the pace at which television technology evolved even after the war, as other nations had to play catch-up, not only in technological terms, but also in understanding television's potential beyond propaganda. Apart from this, Hitler's television efforts also set a precedent for the centralization of broadcast control, a model that has had lasting negative impacts on the broadcasting industry and society. By tightly controlling television content, the Nazi regime demonstrated the power of broadcast media as a tool for state propaganda and manipulation. This model of centralized control became an attractive strategy for other authoritarian regimes throughout the 20th century and beyond, leading to a global landscape where many nations struggle with government control over broadcasting. This centralization undermines the diversity of viewpoints and restricts the free flow of information, a cornerstone of democratic societies. The legacy of this control mechanism is still visible today in countries where the government maintains a tight grip on broadcasting, stifling dissent, and manipulating public opinion. Perhaps one of the most insidious long-term effects of Hitler's foray into television is the normalization of propaganda as a legitimate tool of statecraft and corporate strategy. The effective use of television by the Nazi regime to shape public opinion and behavior demonstrated the medium's potential for influencing society. This lesson has not been lost on subsequent generations of political and corporate leaders. In the contemporary media landscape, the line between information and propaganda has increasingly blurred, with television shows, news broadcasts, and even social media platforms being used to manipulate public opinion. This normalization of propaganda techniques, honed during the early days of television under Hitler, has eroded public trust in media and contributed to the polarization of society. The early use of television by the Nazi regime also contributed to an erosion of ethics in broadcasting that is still felt today. The willingness to use television as a tool for deceit, manipulation, and control set a dangerous precedent for broadcasters. Over the decades, this has manifested in various forms, from the sensationalism and fear-mongering in news broadcasts to the ethical quandaries surrounding reality TV and the exploitation of participants. The roots of these practices can be traced back to the early days of television under Hitler, when the medium was first used to manipulate and deceive on a massive scale. This ethical erosion challenges broadcasters and content creators to navigate the fine line between influence and manipulation, a dilemma that continues to define the industry. The early efforts of television under Hitler also had a lasting impact on cultural development. By prioritizing propaganda and state messaging over artistic and cultural expression, the Nazi regime stifled the potential of television as a medium for cultural enrichment and exchange. This suppression of cultural diversity in the early days of television set a precedent for future broadcasters, where commercial imperatives often overshadow the medium's potential to promote cultural understanding and artistic expression. The long-term consequence is a television landscape often criticized for its homogeneity and lack of cultural depth, a direct lineage from the early manipulation of the medium for propaganda purposes. The early use of television by Hitler's regime has had a profound impact on viewer perception and behavior, effects that have cascaded through generations. The manipulative techniques developed and employed during this era laid the groundwork for understanding how television could be used to shape not just public opinion, but also social norms and behaviors. Today, the influence of television and media on individual and collective behavior is a well-acknowledged phenomenon, with roots in the propaganda efforts of the Nazi era. This legacy is evident in everything from advertising strategies that manipulate consumer behavior to political campaigns designed to sway voter opinion, reflecting the dark arts of persuasion perfected under Hitler's early television experiments.